Well, it was funny because this is all happening so quickly, but the first thing on my list that had happened a few days ago was that Leon Edwards um, was a number three ranked fighter, and then they were going to take away his ranking. So there's obviously new news that just came out recently that kind of contradicts that. I don't know if you want to kind of go into it.
Yeah, so I mean, we had some technical difficulties. So as we were fixing those, I look at my phone, and Khamzat Chimaev, Leon Edwards booked for December, the last card of the year. Pretty crazy. So I guess the terms were Leon Edwards accepts this fight, and he gets his number three ranking back. So that's what he did. He accepted the fight, fights Khamzat. But man, what is he doing? Like, I think that at this point, that's a tougher fight than if he would have just accepted the Wonderboy fight. Like, I feel like he has dug himself into a bigger hole. And I'll be honest, I don't know that I've ever seen a fighter stripped of their ranking. And he came out and he said all this stuff that fighters were denying fights with him, they were ducking him. Clearly, that wasn't the case. You know, if the UFC was offering him fights, he was accepting, and the other people were denying it or declining it. There's no way that they're stripping him of his ranking. The only way that you're getting stripped of your ranking is if you've been thrown so many opponents and you say no to all of them. And that's exactly what he's done. And it makes no sense to me. I don't know what it is. It annoys me that he basically lied. Either he lied or the UFC hates him. It's one or the other. And to me, it's looking like he lied. And so, like, to me, how do you do that? And then now you're fighting the hottest prospect who seems at this point untouchable. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm excited for Khamzat because I think that obviously it's going to be his biggest test. We're going to really know 100% what Khamzat's about because Leon Edwards is a well-rounded fighter. But at this point, man, you're facing a guy who's fought so many times since the start of the year, probably the fastest rising fighter we've ever seen at this point. A guy that was basically unheard of going into 2020, and all of a sudden wins this fight. He's going to be top three, most likely. Top three, top five. And, like, it's absolutely insane. Like, I think Leon Edwards was better off fighting Wonderboy. And I think, honestly, it's a lot what I said last time. I think Leon knows he is not that good. He's good, but he is not as good as 1, 2, or 3. And he knows that if he loses a fight, it's going to drop him down the rankings. He was trying to hold off till that title shot that never came, and now he's dug himself into this hole. And if he loses this fight, it is not good. Like, he's dropping out of the top 5, maybe out of the top 10.
This is the dream matchup for Chimaev. He was calling out every single person in the top 15, waiting for a response back. He was getting very close. We were just talking about both Neil Magny and Nate Diaz as potential candidates to fight him. They both expressed interest. Was it even Chris Weidman as well who said that he would want to fight him?
Yep.
And then, for some reason, Leon Edwards is like, yeah, that's a good idea, but it actually is the most backwards thinking thing you can think of from his perspective, because Chimaev is an unranked fighter prospect. Your top 3, if you lose this fight, you're going to drop down heavily. Whereas you give Chimaev the open door to just walk right into the top 10, top 5, maybe top 3. And for Chimaev, it's honestly, I don't think he wanted to fight Covington or Burns or any of those guys like in the top 3 or Usman. But Leon Edwards, I mean, why not? That's a winnable fight for him based on what we've seen. So the whole thing is completely backwards. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, that was the fight to make. He completely botched that. So I don't know what Leon Edwards is thinking. He's a little bit delusional. He was calling out Gilbert Burns, trying to get a title contender fight after the Usman fight got pushed back. So I don't think Leon got what he wanted. Maybe he was forced to take it. But it is a bad fight for Leon, and it is a great fight for Khamzat.
Well, I think for Leon Edwards, I think it was one of two things. I think you take the fight and you keep your ranking. You don't take the fight, you drop out of the top 15, whatever, and possibly getting cut from the UFC. And if you get cut from the UFC, Bellator is not paying what the UFC is paying. I mean, that's the closest option, but they're not paying, if you're the top 3 in the UFC, you're making pretty good money. I don't know that in Bellator you're making the same. So I don't know. Very, very odd. Just the whole thing is awkward. Leon Edwards, I think, definitely backed himself into a corner. And like you said, if you're Khamzat, you got to be happy. And it was funny. Someone tweeted 2 guys that couldn't find opponents are finally crossing paths. But the problem is Leon had a ton of opponents, and he, for whatever reason, I don't understand it. For whatever reason, he turned down them all. I mean, Wonder Boy or even Masvidal, like those were the 2 fights to make. He gains nothing by beating Khamzat. He gains nothing because Khamzat's unranked.
He's not going to move up.
He can only lose at this point. He can only lose in this, win. If he wins, the only positive is he probably keeps his 3 spot. If he loses, he's I don't know. It's absolutely crazy to me.
Yeah, it's insane. It makes no sense. He might have just unraveled his whole career right there. That's going to be tough. So
you better hope he wins.